Hey IT friends, how's it going? Happy Thursday. I had mentioned in a previous video, we were talking about the three main levers in sales: fear, pain, and gain. And I'm not a sales expert, but I had mentioned the fact that in value based relationship selling, which is what most MSPs are doing, fear is tricky because eventually, if you educate the client enough on the subject that they're fearful about, which is what you're going to do with fear based selling, that fear shifts over to pain. And pain's a little bit harder sometimes to translate into a sale because the pain has to be great enough for the person to actually want to do something about it. We gave the analogy of the dog on the nail. I just want to talk a little bit more about fear based selling today and just some things to kind of think about when you use that as a tool. So, if you're a professional salesperson who's dedicated the majority of your career to this, you probably don't need this video. But if you are an MSP person who's selling, well, you're probably not a professional salesperson. And I don't say this to be mean, but you're probably not that great at it because, well, you're good at computer stuff, not selling. So a lot of the advice that you're going to find when you look online around selling, especially with fear, pain, and gain, is really sort of pushed more towards that true sales professional where that's their actual career. And not that that shouldn't be your career. In fact, it should probably be your main focus. But I'm just going to sort of take the L for the whole team on behalf of all of you that we're all collectively not really the best at selling. So let's talk about the three levers really quickly, and then we're going to get into fear. Flipping it around for a second, the easiest lever to close on, but the hardest one to probably pull is gain. And I say that having come from an industry in the past that was strictly gain based selling, high end audio video. Normally, in gain based selling, so if you want to reduce this to carrot and stick, the carrot, gain based selling, if somebody comes in, they already have a desire for and a budget allocated to basically add or enhance something. All you really have to do in game based selling is direct them to where that spend is going to be. And so in terms of closing, that requires to a certain extent the least amount of skill, I guess. That's not the right word, but you get what I'm saying. The thing is that for the most part with MSPs, that's not in the position we're in. We don't generally have clients coming to us that are saying, I have a small business, I would like to add these things, I already have a budget, and I have a timeline. Please tell me the best way to spend my money. It happens occasionally, but for the most part, we're not like a kitchen remodeling place or a Ferrari dealership. People generally aren't coming there having already decided to spend money on the product category, offer us a budget that is reasonable and is sort of scaled to what they're asking for, and they just need us to manage it. So we're going to kind of put gain over to the side for a minute. So that leaves you with fear and pain. What I see a lot of online advice, not just for MSPs, just in general, if you search this, is fear and pain tend to get combined together. And a lot of places will sort of offer the carrot and stick analogy, like we just talked about, where gain is the carrot and fear or pain is the stick. And I don't know that that's the best comparison for us, where we're still struggling a little bit to really use these tools effectively. Because if you think of the carrot and the stick, well, I'm afraid of getting hit with the stick. But once I get hit with the stick a few times, the pain might not really be that off putting. And I might be able to power through it. And for the most part, that's kind of how humans are about most rational things. We generally, after we've been exposed to something we are afraid of enough, we no longer are as afraid of it, and then it simply causes pain. And for a lot of us, we are very capable of powering through the pain, both literally. I mean, look at people who, do long distance running, but also mentally and figuratively. Humans are pretty good at that. And so if your entire strategy is simply to combine fear and pain together, it'll work, but it's probably not the most effective thing the longer you work with a client. So let's talk about why. So let's imagine for a minute that instead of small business IT, you run a marina and somebody has a boat and they are just insanely afraid of sharks. They are afraid that if they even go down the dock and step from the dock to their boat and slip on the water, the Meg is going to jump up and eat them. And it's a paralyzing fear of theirs. And you could probably at that point sell them quite a bit of stuff. You could sell them shark insurance. You could sell them shark repellent. You could sell them a shark suit. You could probably sell them like, a dedicated service where the boat is lowered into the water with them already in it. I don't know. There's so many ways you could frame that where you could sell based on that fear. But you run a marina. So ultimately, your income is going to come not just from the transactional things, but from having somebody berth their boat at your marina long term, get shore power, fuel from you, services from you, eat in your place. You kind of need a relationship, and you need a relationship built around a certain level of trust and general best practices for taking care of their boat, or they'll just go somewhere else. So that usually ends up meaning that if you see somebody who is doing things that are not really in their best interest, you're probably going to educate them. And even if you're not educating them directly, your staff or the environment of the marina is going to educate the boat owner. So at some point, that boat owner is slowly going to realize that they may still be terrified of sharks, but, well, the likelihood of a shark actually jumping out of the water and biting them when they're at the marina is pretty much impossible. So there's not really that much fear anymore the longer the relationship goes on. It then shifts over to pain. And how much pain is that fear creating, and is it worth solving? In the case of the marina, we could see globally across the world. No, it's not worth solving. Nobody's solving it. No, there are no commonly adopted anti-shark mitigation features that are in all marinas everywhere. Because as it turns out, yeah, if you chum the water and fall in, you might get bit, but the risk is pretty low, and so the pain is pretty low. So we just kind of deal with it and move forward and plow forward. And that's a pretty silly example, and I only use it because I think a lot of people are afraid of sharks. But that shows you how fear doesn't necessarily continuously translate over to something you're willing to solve with money. So I bring this up because I think a lot of us get really uncomfortable with the idea of strategically using fear to sell because we do feel like there's a lot of FUD. And there is. And we see that with security products all the time. And there is a certain point where you learn enough about how it works where it's not really scary anymore. You might have an awareness or a concern, or you might have a mild, healthy fear, but it's not this paralyzing, gripping, I need to throw money at the problem to make it go away fear anymore. And if you're a good MSP, you're probably exposing your clients to this same sort of process, which means that over the long term, you really can't rely on fear as your primary sales tactic, although it is a useful tool. When we talked about pain a little bit in the previous video, and we talked about the dog on the nail, the analogy there was while the pain was likely constant and low, it wasn't significant enough for the dog to want to get off the nail because the effort of getting off was a bigger value than just sitting on the nail. And I think everybody kind of can get that understanding that pain needs to be significant enough where the desire to change the behavior outweighs the pain. So pain really forces us to consistently deliver value. The thing with fear is, and I'll go back to the boat analogy. So on a boat, how many of you have a pain point on a boat of drowning? Well, probably not, because you're only going to be suffering the pain of drowning if you're either actively drowning or you've had some sort of trauma or accident from previously having experienced drowning. So otherwise, you just have a fear of it. So on a boat, you're required, well, forget the legal requirements. You have life jackets, and the life jackets are really literally there just to offset the fear of drowning, because we're not really experiencing the pain of drowning until we're actually drowning. So I bring this up because if you've been around boating at all, you'll find that, yeah, boats have the life jackets in the locker, but like a lot of people don't wear them because over time, the value that you feel you're getting from wearing the life jacket decreases pretty sharply because you're not actually in any pain, by wearing or not wearing the life jacket. And slowly, as we already mentioned, that fear is going to decrease. So, the other reason why I think it's important to remember that you have to shift fear based anything over to pain based management is exactly for that reason. So, a great example that comes to mind for us is security awareness training. So, we come into a client and we say, listen, the primary method that an attacker is going to try to compromise your account is going to be through email. It's, whatever percentage is currently being quoted. But that is the biggest threat vector. It's super scary. They could take everything from your business. They could steal money. You could have a data breach. Your whole business could go away. Everything you love and know could just be gone. Very scary. You need to sign up for security awareness training. And the client says, well, that's super scary. I don't want that. I want that life jacket. Let me sign up. And they sign up and they may or may not go through the initial training, but let's say they do. And then a lot of organizations, it tends to be abandoned over time because that fear eventually, well, nobody drowned yet. So I got life jackets. They're there. But I guess I don't need to wear them every day because, nobody's actually drowning. They are there, though. So you've quelled the fear, but you haven't shifted it over to managing the pain. And I think that's a really important point for a lot of my MSP friends. You have to make sure that if you are using fear as a selling strategy, you very quickly translate that over to a business pain point. And a business pain point needs to be something that has some sort of risk mitigation involved and somehow impacts revenue in a tangible way, even if you're the one making it tangible for them in a continuous way. So this needs consistent reinforcement. And we know with security awareness training, you back this up with policy compliance, insurance, regulatory, all that stuff. That's the pain management element of this. But that's why you can't just only have the fear. That's it. I'm not a sales expert. I just wanted to mention that because I kind of hinted at that in my last video. And I kind of just left that dangling there. So just want to make sure we covered that. I hope you have a great Thursday. And if you're doing any kind of selling, I'm proud of you because that's the hardest part of owning a small business is getting new clients. And ultimately, I talk a lot about operations because that's my comfort zone, but operations don't matter if you don't have any clients. So get out there, yank that fear, pain, or gain lever, get more clients, and crush it. And if you need any other further inspiration, my MSP friends, we're pushing into the summer. So, the year's kind of half gone. Let's get out there. Let's do some projects. Let's get some clients. Let's look at our existing clients, see if there's anything we can do to help those people spend a little more money with us. You've got this. Have a great Thursday.